Welcome back. If you're watching this video, chances are you've checked out my first 2-minute video where I talk about hot topics and how there's a blind spot making it impossible for you and your spouse to communicate effectively. Well, in this video, I want to explain exactly what that blind spot is and why simply improving your communication skills won't resolve those hot topics. I'm also going to explain how my self-study course called End the Arguing is designed to help you walk through all the steps of exposing that blind spot, putting you in a position of communicating effectively so you can resolve those hot topics. If you're like most of my couples, chances are you understand that communication has to be improved. Chances are you recognize that behaviors need to be tweaked. And also you probably are pretty aware that these hot topics can get charged emotionally, so that there's an emotional element that needs to be addressed as well. So you know all of that. So why is it you haven't been able to resolve those hot topics? Well, my 22 years experience has taught me that there's one root issue driving those hot topics, making it impossible for you to communicate effectively. Let me explain using an example. I worked with a couple who originally came to me asking for help to improve their communication. So the process I go through is to first identify the hot topics. So what are the things that they fought about on a regular basis? The wife said that the husband would always come home late for dinner, and no matter how hard she tried to communicate her thoughts and feelings, nothing would ever impact him to the point where he would change his behaviors, and the conversations always spiraled out of control. The next step was to identify how both of them responded emotionally and behaviorally to those hot topics. So I asked the husband how he felt whenever his wife gave him feedback about being home late for dinner. Well, he described feeling really angry and very inadequate. He would respond by leaving the house and driving away in his car. The next step is to understand what I call the backstory. So I asked him, when in the past had he felt like that before? He told me that his father was extremely critical, and no matter what he did or said, nothing was ever good enough. So he always had this feeling of inadequacy. So I asked the same set of questions of the wife. Well, she described that whenever her husband would drive off in a car, she would feel fearful, anxious, and worried. And she would respond by becoming very aggressive in her communication. The next step for her was to identify her backstory. So I asked her when in her past had she felt like that. She told me that when she was a child, she saw her mother and father get into a huge argument. Her father drove off in a car and died in a car accident. So what is this couple's blind spot? Well, it's the same for them as it is for all of the couples. They had no idea that the behaviors were triggering this emotional pain that was rooted in the past. Their solution was to stay stuck on the behaviors, spinning their wheels in the hot topics without addressing the emotional pain. And unless you're addressing that emotional pain, communicating effectively is almost impossible. My goal for you in working through this course is the same goal that I have for my couples when I'm working with them in person, is to expose that blind spot so you can resolve those hot topics once and for all. We do that by identifying the problematic behaviors, understanding the emotion that the behaviors are evoking, answer those backstory questions like when in the past have you felt this way before. Then we move to the solution phase of our work together, where we talk about managing triggers, which is simply about helping you reset emotionally so you're in the best possible position to communicate effectively. In the communication segment of our work together, you're going to hear me discuss something that I call emotional first aid, and using I statements to help reduce defensiveness and create a sense of openness when you're giving feedback about those problematic behaviors. With this newfound information, my couples experience light bulb moments early on in our work together, which helps move them away from that attack-defend dynamic to a more loving, compassionate, and supportive dynamic where they see that they're on each other's side. They have this empathy and understanding for their spouse, which helps them solve these problems together. I can't wait for you to experience the relief that comes from knowing that there is a solution. You don't need to stay stuck in these hot topics. But more importantly, I can't wait for you and your spouse to feel all the love, closeness, and connection that comes from resolving these hot topics once and for all. So go ahead, click on the link, download the course, and get started. Good luck.